You ever listen to someone talk and you're just struck by how clear their thinking is? It's like their ideas are perfectly logical, super powerful, and they just cut right to the heart of the matter. It's so easy to think, wow, they must have been born that way. But what if that kind of high-level thinking is less of a gift and more of a skill you can actually train? So how do we get our brains to work like the sharpest minds out there? Well, let's dive in.
This is the big question, isn't it? We have this tendency to see intelligence as something that's just fixed, unchangeable. But tons of psychological research shows that there's a much bigger picture, and it's a picture you can actively help paint for yourself.
So here's the crucial point. While your innate IQ definitely plays a role, it's really only one part of the story. The mental habits you practice every single day, the way you actually run your thought process, can matter just as much, if not way more. We're not talking about the hardware you were born with, but the software you choose to run on it. So in this explainer, we're going to walk through exactly how to upgrade your thinking. First, we'll reframe how we look at thinking as a skill. Then we'll dive into the habits for mastering your inner world. And after that, some strategies for engaging with the outside world. And finally, we'll bundle it all up into a new mental toolkit you can start using right away. That's right. Thinking is a skill. Just like playing the guitar or learning a sport, high-level reasoning gets better with consistent, deliberate practice. The habits we're about to cover, think of them as the daily exercises that build up that mental muscle. Okay, let's start in the most important place there is, your own mind. This first set of habits is all about taming that internal monologue and getting conscious control over your gut reactions and impulses. The first habit is an absolute powerhouse. It's called metacognition. And simply put, it's the practice of thinking about your thinking. Instead of just accepting your thoughts as facts, you kind of step back and look at them like a detective. It's that little voice inside a great scientist's head that asks, but what if I'm wrong about this? And research shows this one habit is a massive predictor of high performance. So how do you actually do it? Well, it's a simple but really profound three-step process. First, just pick a specific belief you hold. Then, you have to honestly ask yourself why you believe it. What's the real evidence? And finally, you do a quick bias check. Am I just looking for info that agrees with me? Confirmation bias. This kind of rigorous self-questioning is really the foundation of clear thinking. All right, on to the second internal habit, emotional regulation. The connection here is just so incredibly strong. Think about high-stakes jobs like stock trading or being a surgeon. Study after study shows that the top performers aren't just the most knowledgeable people, they're also the most emotionally controlled. They just make better, more logical decisions when the pressure is on. You can see two paths here. One is just, bam, impulse followed by an instant emotional reaction. But the other path has this critical extra step, a pause. That tiny little gap between a stimulus and your response, that's where intelligence lives. It's where you give your logical brain a chance to catch up with your emotions and guide what you do next. And that brings us to this key idea. Intelligence isn't just about having a library of facts stored in your head. A huge part of it is having the self-control to override your first impulse and choose a more reasoned path. That discipline, in itself, is a form of genius. Okay, so we've worked on our inner world. Now let's turn our attention to how we engage with the world outside. Because how we process information, deal with challenges, and handle uncertainty is just as critical for high-level thinking. Highly effective thinkers, they make a conscious choice every day to step out of their comfort zone and into the growth zone. They don't just consume easy content and simple ideas. They actively look for complex stuff and are willing to sit with that feeling of confusion because they know that's exactly where the real learning happens. Psychologists have this fantastic name for this, desirable difficulty. That mental struggle, it isn't a sign that you're failing. It's a sign your brain is building new connections. It's literally the cognitive equivalent of lifting weights. It feels hard in the moment, for sure, but that strain is what makes you stronger and a much more agile problem solver in the long run. This next habit is a big one, cognitive flexibility. This is the ability, and maybe more importantly, the willingness to change your mind when you're faced with new, credible evidence. It's having the intellectual humility to let go of an old idea to make room for a better one. And this is so important to get. Our culture sometimes makes the mistake of thinking stubbornness is strength, but really, clinging to an old opinion just to protect your ego, that is the definition of weak thinking. The most powerful thinkers don't just learn, they're constantly adapting and updating their beliefs. And the final habit for engaging with the world is all about killing your absolutes. The sharpest thinkers, they rarely use words like always or never. And why is that? Because reality is messy, it's nuanced. Instead of seeing everything in black and white, they see it in shades of gray. They think in probabilities.
So instead of asking, will this happen? They instinctively ask, how likely is this to happen? They assess things in terms of odds. Maybe there's a 60% chance of success, a 30% possibility of a small problem, and a 10% risk of a major failure. This kind of nuanced thinking leads to dramatically better judgment and decisions over time. So, after covering all that ground, let's pull it all together into a practical toolkit. These are the 5 core habits you can start putting into practice right away to give your own thinking a fundamental upgrade. Here they are, the 5 big habits. Number 1, question your own thinking. That's metacognition. 2, actively choose mental challenges over just staying comfortable. 3, create that all-important pause before you react. 4, be willing to update your beliefs when you get new evidence. And 5, think in probabilities, not in absolutes. Look, these aren't just abstract ideas, they are practical, trainable skills. And just like any other skill, they only get stronger with practice. So the real question isn't just about what you learned here, but what you're actually going to do with it. Looking at this toolkit, which one of these mental habits are you going to start training first?